So thank you all for taking the time to join us with this important forum with candidates for San Jose's mayor's race. My name is Regina Celestine Williams. I'm privileged to be the Executive Director of SB at Home and the SB at Home Action Fund. And we are so very proud to be hosting this forum today. We would like to remind everyone that SB at Home's constituents are all of San Jose's residents, both the housed and unhoused. And that's why we're taking this time to learn a little bit more about these candidates and where they stand on housing. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to thank our co-hosts. Our forum today is co-hosted by amazing partners, the Black Leadership Kitchen Cabinet, the Billy DeFrank LGBTQ+ Community Center, California YIMBY, Destination Home, the Greenbelt Alliance, Housing Choices Coalition, the Law Foundation of Silicon Valley, Lead Filipino, Momentum for Health, the San Jose Silicon Valley NAACP chapter, Silicon Valley Community Foundation, Silicon Valley Council of Nonprofits, South Bay YIMBY, Student Homeless Alliance, Streets for People, United Way Bay Area, Urban Environmentalists, the Vietnamese American Roundtable, and YIMBY Action. Thank you again to all of our partners. We're so happy to be here in community with you to learn more about where these candidates stand on housing. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our moderator for today's forum, Maggie Angst, reporter for the San Jose Mercury News.
Thanks, Regina. Today, we're honored to be joined by 6 candidates who are hoping to become San Jose's next mayor. Our candidates today are Cindy Chavez, Deb Davis, Matt Mahan, Raul Peralez, Jim Spence, and Marshall Allen Woodmansee. First, let's review the rules and expectations for this forum. We'll hear an opening statement from each candidate, then move on to Q&A discussion with both some long answers and some rapid fire questions. And then we'll hear a closing statement from each candidate. The candidates have had the opportunity to see these questions ahead of time. And for each question, the time will be limited with time limits strictly enforced. I'll try and give like a 10-second heads up. Because there will be no opportunity, we're not going to do rebuttals. Candidates have been asked to not critique or respond to or engage with the other candidates and just stick to the issues, the job, your experience, approach, and ideas. All the candidates will have the opportunity to answer each question. So we'll make our way around and switch off with each question. First, we'll begin with 1-minute opening statements. We'll just start with alphabetical. Cindy, we'll start with you. So time starts now.
Thank you. Thank you so much to all of the organizations who are coming together to have this really important discussion about housing. I particularly wanted to thank all of you for a couple things. One, the leadership so many of you have played on Measure A, the housing bond. Second, the incredible work so many of you have done to get Measure E on the ballot and support that effort. And third, really to be standing up every time we are looking to expand both services for mental health or drug or alcohol services or other kinds of opportunities to really engage the community in better understanding the importance of affordable housing and housing the homeless. I'm so sorry. But he's going to keep doing that. So I'll just finish by saying I'm looking forward to the discussion with all of you today. Thank you.
All right, Deb, next.
Thank you. What I've learned as a council member over the last 5+ years is that big problems only get bigger during difficult times. And I think we've all learned that during the pandemic. But I've also learned that good things can happen when we work together, even in the worst of times. And I think all of you today, and I want to thank all of you for coming and to thank Maggie for hosting. We do this work together. And I think we know that San Jose is facing big problems like homelessness and blight. And City Hall must begin to help and not hinder our growth. We must be a safe, clean, and thriving San Jose. As mayor, I will focus on rebuilding safety, protecting our single-family homes, and tackling our growing homelessness problem. I want to thank you all for coming today and say that I will not time on policies that I think are ineffective, or we want the dollars to go as far as possible. Thank you.
Great, thanks. Matt?
Hi, thank you all for hosting this important conversation today. My name is Matt Mahan, and I'm the council member for District 10, representing Almaden Valley and the Santa Teresa Foothills, where my wife Sylvia and I are raising our two little kids, Nina and Luke. I'm running for mayor because our city is heading in the wrong direction on so many issues, from high housing costs and homelessness to trash and blight that's going unaddressed. And I believe that we must do better, and I know that we can if we hold ourselves to a higher standard. I came to San Jose, like so many, for opportunity as a work-study scholarship student in high school. I came back after college as a public school teacher in Eastside San Jose, and then spent a decade building a couple of successful startup companies that focused on increasing transparency and accountability in government. And my mission at City Hall is reinventing local government to be more focused, more data-driven, and more accountable for results. I hope you'll join our revolution of common sense at mahanforsanjose.com. Thank you.
Raul?
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Raul Peralez, and I'm proud to be a lifelong resident here of our city. And I grew up in a humble working class immigrant family in a rent-controlled fourplex over in West San Jose, and was the first in my family to be able to go to college and graduate right here at San Jose State University. And I've spent my entire career serving our community. First as a substitute teacher for 10 years. I went back to school and became an emergency medical technician, and that led me to my next career as a San Jose police officer, where I proudly served for 8 years prior to running for office in 2014. And now I've been serving our community as your downtown council representative, going on my 8th and final year. And I've seen the opportunities that a mayor has to be able to lead our city for decades to come. And I'm proud to be able to take on the challenges like homelessness, affordable housing, public safety, and help make San Jose a city that's for all of us. Thank you.
Jim?
Thank you very much. My name is Jim Spence. I'm a third generation San Jose resident. I was educated in local public schools and have a Bachelor of Arts degree from San Jose State. I worked for the residents of this city for 31 years as a police officer and sergeant, working on the Mayor's Gang Task Force, school liaison units, community services division, and supervising the crime prevention through environmental design unit, which provided technical support and community knowledge on the Midtown and Santana Row projects. I was a staff member for San Jose City Council member John DeQuisto, reviewing policy issues for him before they came before the council. I worked on the Greater Downtown Task Force and also have a real estate license. I operate a small private investigations company. Learning firsthand about operating a business has taught me about the hurdles businesses face every day. Because of my diverse background, I'm not new to how city services or San Jose government works. As mayor, I would take very seriously the fiduciary responsibility for using our taxpayer dollars to provide the core services of infrastructure, fire prevention, library and park services, and police enforcement. Thank you.
Thank you. Marshall?
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. It's so awesome to see that we have now reached 100 participants in this online Zoom channel. I think this is great for engagement and democracy. And as you may notice, I may look a little different than the other people on stage with me. And that's because I am a little different. I was born in the year 2000, and my goal in life is to turn our civilization away from fossil fuel consumption. It's a pretty well promoted thought by a lot of scientists. My dad's got a master's in biology, and of course, being raised in the 21st century, I had a really busy, 18 and 19 years old when I was running for city council and dealing with our climate action crisis. Furthermore, I'm now deeply committed to redirecting our city towards a path where walking and biking is the main way that we get around, and that the things we need for life, including shelter, food, and resources, are produced at home. I'm really excited for you to hear my ideas about how we can house people in an eco-friendly and community-positive way. Thank you so much.
Awesome. All right, and now we're going to move on to our main Q&A section. Each candidate, again, will have 1 minute to answer each question. So for starters, systematic racism has played a role in housing policy for decades. For example, discriminatory lending practices and exclusionary zoning. We see the effects of the past and current policies disproportionately affecting people of color, leading to segregation, limited housing choices, and lack of opportunity. As mayor, what policy changes would you prioritize in order to dismantle segregation, stabilize BIPOC communities, and close the racial wealth gap? Dev, we'll start with you this time.
Thank you. I do understand that in the days of redlining, there were discriminatory practices. I don't know how there are discriminatory practices today, and what I'm not quite sure of is how we get past those without setting up discriminatory practices again. I think we need to preserve the diversity of housing types. We need to ensure that all neighborhoods are safe. And of course, we need to build affordable housing. I have supported every affordable housing project that has come through to the city council. And when they come to my district, I always ask, are you maximizing the number of units that you have? The last thing I'll say is that I think it's something that we should look into is that there are new startups that are helping home buyers with down payment assistance. And I think we need to look into that as a city to see if we can support those efforts.
Matt?
Thank you. I'm committed to affirmatively furthering fair housing in San Jose by bringing smart growth, including affordable, mixed income housing development to every part of our city. In fact, we're submitting our housing element to the state later this year, which will show how and where we will make room for future generations and increase the access to and affordability of our housing stock. Every district in San Jose has transit and commercial corridors that can sustain housing development, greater densities, that mixed use, transit oriented, and importantly, mixed income development that I know we all want. I'd like to see us further evolve our inclusionary housing ordinance to better incentivize developers to build that affordable housing on site, so we actually are creating mixed income communities. And I think the greatest leverage we have as a city is reducing barriers to housing production where we want it in our urban villages. Faster review processes, streamlined permit fee reductions, and removing unnecessary barriers to building housing across our city. Thank you.
Raul?
Yeah, thank you. There were dedicated laws and policies that got us to where we're at today. And today we still have communities and even entire districts that have little to none on affordable housing or supportive housing. We need to be able to create these type of opportunities all throughout our entire city. I'm proud to be the only candidate that has stood strongly in favor of both opportunity housing and SB 9 policies like that will help us to create these type of opportunities. I myself grew up in a rent-controlled fourplex in West San Jose. If it wasn't for that opportunity to be in and amongst some of the single-family expensive homes, I would not have been able to go to the same school district from K through 12, Cupertino High School, and then be able to go on to San Jose State University. And I wouldn't be where I'm at today. We need to create those type of opportunities throughout our entire city. I'm also proud to have led on creating a stronger siting policy where we can then incentivize the growth of affordable housing in some of our more wealthier communities throughout the entire city.
Thank you. Jim?
I would make a public declaration that if a person discriminates against another in a situation, but in particular housing, the city would assist in finding a criminal or civil social solution to the act. I will continue to push for equal education across the city. Our young people need to know that education is the best foundation for wealth growth. Any policy changes that need to come need to come from the housing and financial sectors. What I can do is speak out publicly when cases of discriminations are brought forward. I think that's the best thing a mayor can do. Try to work with the financial areas and the housing areas to make sure that they are fair in what they're doing. When I talked at the Realtors Association, that was one of the things I told them, that they needed to go ahead and police their own people so that everyone has an opportunity to live where they want and how they want to live. Thank you.
Thank you. Marshall?
I'd like to give you a short story about Marshall when he was 17. I'd marched for our lives protesting gun violence in our public schools. And then when he was 19, running for city council, protesting inaction by our government to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. What I'm getting at here is, and what the question is asking is, what do we do about, failed governments of the past, and how do we, impact dramatically today's world? And I guess when I bring up those stories, they're really hard for me to deal with. Of course, my peers were getting shot at in schools, and globally, my fellow humans are struggling with rising temperatures and rising oceans and plastic pollution. And so I think that San Jose must be a leader in reducing our greenhouse gas emissions. And I think that as we keep talking about what our future in San Jose looks like, we'll see that community connectivity is essential. And we can do that by dramatically changing the general plan and making all open land only for agriculture and housing, and sanctioned encampments that are state of the art with water, electricity, and plumbing. Thank you.
Cindy?
Thank you for the question. We've had some very recent successes, and we're learning quite a lot about allowing people to stay in their own homes. And one of the things we learned during COVID is that with relatively little money, we were able to keep people housed. And so I think we need to take a look at those flexible programs that give people cash and let them stabilize their families. The second thing that we did is we invested quite a lot in legal assistance, and I think we should continue to do that so that people aren't forced out of the homes that they live in. At the county, one of the actions I took was to try to get the county to invest in community development corporations, and we're in the process now with an RFP where we have nonprofits that are applying to play those roles, and to continue to look at investments in things like co-ops and land trusts. And finally, I absolutely think we need to emphasize first-time homebuyer programs and looking at opportunities to work both public and private sector to make sure that those investment opportunities are available for moderate and low-income families.
Right. Next question. In 2020, San Jose voters approved Measure E, a property transfer tax used to fund affordable housing. However, the first portion of Measure E funds, the city received applications that outstripped demands by over $90 million. Also, the city is likely to redirect some of the funding toward temporary housing construction and services. As an additional source of local funding to respond to the increasing demand for affordable housing, would you support increasing San Jose's linkage fee, which is placed on new development that adds jobs to the city? Why or why not? And this time we'll start with Matt.
Thanks for the question. Currently, no. I actually agree, obviously agree with the unanimous decision my colleagues and I just recently made to defer that decision to track market conditions. Measure E's revenue source dwarfs that of the commercial linkage fee. And even so, we're going to always face more demand for that subsidy for affordable housing than we have the revenue to provide. And unlike the rest of the region, San Jose suffers from a very low ratio of jobs to employed residents, which means we have a smaller tax base and difficulty providing core services to our residents. And so we cannot simply benchmark off of San Francisco or Palo Alto. We have to look at our unique fiscal position as a city and implement policies that get us to the right balance of jobs to housing to be in a fiscally strong position. I think the right way to expand those sources of revenue is to create a regional or state funding mechanism for affordable housing that shares the burden across all of our communities, including smaller, wealthier cities with more jobs. Thank you.
Raul?
Yeah, thank you. And absolutely, our commercial linkage fee needs to be higher. It was specifically and strategically set at a lower dollar amount because of the unfortunate timing of us implementing it during a pandemic. And so that is why the council did unanimously decide to defer a reanalysis, because the expert opinion today is that we're not going to be able to increase it anytime soon because we are still rearing from the impacts of this pandemic. But as we come back to do a reanalysis in a couple years, we will be able to have an opportunity to increase that linkage fee like we had intended to implement when we first analyzed and passed it. I supported our efforts that we have now passed that will allow us to reanalyze the fee and determine what a better fee model will be. And I would be in support of increasing that when that time comes.
Yeah. Jim?
Yes, I would not increase the fees without auditing and evaluating the income from the current fees. San Jose has been known as a bedroom community for years. San Jose developers have built a lot of houses and apartments over the years. Because of this, we have fallen very far behind our neighboring cities in having a large commercial tax base. Many of our current financial shortcomings are because of the fact that we don't have a large commercial base. We need commercial income to provide the basic services for the residents. By increasing fees, we would drive away the revenue source that we badly need. Additionally, we need to ensure that affordable housing continues to remain affordable housing well into the future. I haven't heard any public education about what this means or how it's maintained. I see this as a must to get our general public to buy this vision. Thank you.
Thank you. Marshall?
I encourage you all, for many reasons, to take a walk throughout downtown and just check out all the development proposals going up. My question to you is, how many developments are you willing to watch spring up while the rest of our neighbors and the current residents of San Jose continually do not get the support that they need to move around, to sleep comfortably at night? I lived under the Santa Clara Bridge at West Santa Clara Street for 3 months consecutively because housing is expensive and my boss at the time had an extra unit parked safely under the bridge. Crystal meth use is so rampant in our neighborhoods. We absolutely must have more clinics, medical assisted clinics, to get to people into recovery. Where's that money going to come from? Maybe it's going to come from one of the towering buildings that's going to be built in my city. I promise to be a strong-fisted mayor that's going to mandate that if commercial interests want to populate my neighborhood, there's going to be a lot of benefit for myself and my neighbors. Thank you.
Cindy?
Yes, thank you for the question. I think, I do think we have to look at every single source of revenue. And one of the concerns I have is that, as we take a look at the commercial linkage fee, is just how long from the time that we're discussing it now will a study be in place. And so what I would be really interested in is a very rigorous third-party study that's inclusive of all the stakeholders so that we better understand what the risks and opportunities are to those fees. I will just add one other thing, and that is that I do think we need to be looking at fees much more holistically. One challenge that the city has, every level of government has, is we tend to splice off and talk about fee Y under this circumstance and fee Z under this circumstance. And I think we actually need to be able to better understand the impacts we're having on all development so that we better understand how to restructure those fees to have the outcomes that we want.
And Deb?
Thank you. I do not support increasing the commercial linkage fee. It is a small amount of revenue for housing, but it is large enough potentially to impede development. And we cannot be squashing development before it even begins. People need good jobs, and we have a jobs housing imbalance. I know this is a housing forum, but we do have a jobs housing imbalance in the city of San Jose, and commercial development provides the revenue that the city needs to provide services that residents deserve. And so it's very important for us to maintain that balance. And right now, we don't have a market that will support additional commercial development. All the development that you hear about that's in the pipeline for downtown hasn't broken ground yet. And there's a very big wait and see attitude from developers right now about whether or not they're planning to go through with the developments that they have in the pipeline. That's a concern for me. We absolutely need the comprehensive look at fees.
Thank you. And for our next question, we're going to go over to one of today's co-hosts, the Vietnamese American Roundtable, VAR. Philip Nguyen is here. He's the Executive Director of the Vietnamese American Roundtable. Philip?
Good afternoon. Everyone agrees that we must do more to address homelessness, and research shows the most cost-effective and effective solutions prioritize getting people housed. However, anytime a proposal is made that would allow the unhoused to situate themselves in any location, neighboring housed residents immediately protest and fight all such proposals, whether that be regarding safe parking, converting a hotel to housing, or permanent supportive housing. How will you address these conflicts that have invariably appeared anytime a proposal is made to create safety and housing for our unhoused neighbors? Thank you.
I think it's me, right? Thank you. Yes, I will address this the same way I've been addressing it the last 7 years, which is directly and head on with the community, to come out with compassion, understanding, and most importantly, facts, because that's one of the challenges that I have seen is we get a lot of misleading information that comes out to our community, and ultimately they make decisions on why they would oppose projects like these based on incorrect facts. And I have been proud to not only helped pass and build the county's very first 100% permanent supportive housing development, but also the third in the county. And today we boast in downtown over 200 100% permanent supportive housing units in 100% supportive complexes. And we have another 93 units being built on North 4th Street. And each and every time those came forward, I was able to go out to our community, get them to understand these types of projects, and get them to be in support of understanding that these solutions are going to be better for everybody.
Great. I think we'll go to Jim next.
Thank you, Maggie. I don't agree that we must do more to address homelessness. The idea that homelessness and affordable housing need to be used in the same breath shows ignorance as to who is homeless. The idea that most homeless are neighbors is ludicrous. The people who claim to be homeless are less than 1% of our total population in San Jose. I've worked with these people when I was a police officer in the jungle, under the bridges, and in the creeks. The majority of these people have chosen not to follow the rules of society, and they will take your belongings if you turn your back on them. No one is talking about how much ongoing taxpayer costs would be needed when establishing these free areas. Our military veterans and seniors who need a hand up. This organization and others have programs that offer a hand up to those who are working to improve themselves and their families. Let's concentrate on the people who are striving to make themselves better. Thank you.
I keep feeling like my space in this race is more and more unique. I'm really going to have a lot of troubles in my lifetime in getting people the needs that they need, especially as our climate warms and as our cars speed up. And I see Teslas speeding all around our community now. And I think the reason I bring up all of my emotional baggage is because I have a lot of it, right? I have friends that have died of overdoses, and I myself was homeless, and I'm currently struggling with going to college and trying to pay rent and live in my parents' house. Thanks, Mom and Dad. I really appreciate it. So what it is about my emotional appeal and my energy that's going to change things? It's because I'm not business as usual. I am not the people business imbalance. I am the people. I need housing. I need care. I need community. And I think that it's correct in addressing that our unhoused residents are really struggling. Have you spent a night out on the street? I haven't, but it seems terrible. So look, Marshall's ready to do the work necessary to really turn this city around, and it starts with not taking money from corporations.
Cindy?
Yes, thank you for the question. I mean, I think and Var, thank you for the work you're doing in the community. I think one of the things that we need to just address head on is this. We don't, and I think this is lots of cities and certainly the county has made this mistake too, is that we don't engage the community, we inform them. And that's really bad. We need to have deep and meaningful engagement and not treat neighbors and neighborhoods like they're enemies, but really work with them to integrate these new housing developments into the community. When we had the Strong Neighborhoods Initiative, when I was a member of the city council, it was an opportunity for us to really work with neighborhoods to help them help us design what was coming their way. One challenge we have is that we take on these projects one by one, and really we need a much bigger community conversation so neighborhoods and all of us understand why we're prioritizing housing, why we're building where we're building, and really try to do more to get buy-in instead of so much confrontation. And I know it's possible.
Deb?
Thank you. We need to stop blaming our housed residents for our failure to authentically engage them in this issue. I think it's really important to understand that surprise breeds fear. I learned that in in my own district when I tried to help a tent community come to an area in my district, which is in Willow Glen. And it happened too fast after that. And so it didn't actually happen, right? Because the neighbors really were surprised and they were afraid. What I learned out of that was it's important to go to the community before you have a project and to start talking about homelessness, the causes of homelessness, what the possible solutions are. And at the end of the day, everybody agrees they want safety, sanitation, and services for our unhoused population, regardless of what the solution is for the housing. And so I have created community advisory committees for every one of the projects that have happened to address homelessness in my district, and it has helped.
Matt?
Thank you for the question, Philip. I think the key to success for these developments is early proactive community engagement and real relationship building. Last year, my team and I did the hard work of moving forward an emergency interim housing site that would be one of the largest in our county on 1.5 acres in what was then in my district before redistricting. And we spent months going out, flyering the neighborhoods, setting up coffee chats with neighborhood leaders, doing larger group meetings, both in person and on Zoom, having lots of conversations. We brought our partners at the county and Life Moves Out to do a meeting with the community and really make the case that the status quo was bad for both our unhoused and housed community, and explaining how this can be a win-win. I've advocated for a local preference that ensures that the neighborhoods that take on these sites are made better off because of it. And finally, I think part of the answer is to develop a master plan so that every community can see who's doing their part and that we're going to be equitably distributing these sites. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So as we know, thousands of San Jose residents are sleeping outdoors each night. And as you just talked about, many of the housed neighbors often complain about those encampments and question what city officials are doing about them. But without enough shelter beds in the city, unhoused residents, typically, many of them don't have anywhere to go. Some people have argued that if some sort of shelter is available, then unhoused people should be forced to take those, which could raise some ethical or legal questions. As mayor, how would you approach encampments and address these concerns? I think we're starting with Jim.
Thank you. The first major thing we need to do is let people know that free things have ended. No free food, tents, sanitation, or money. Let people know it's time to find work. The city should not be in the shelter business. The encampments need to be cleaned up. The city needs to take back the parks and trails so the general public can use them without concern of disease and personal safety. Most of these homeless have already made public statements saying they will refuse to move into any kind of forced housing. This utopian idea that all people want to live in some kind of a house is not based on any realism as to what the intended client wants. The majority of homeless just want to be left alone, don't want to conform to any rules, and will take whatever they can get for free. We need to realize who the client is and what's going on with them. I think that's really an issue that is overlooked because we pour money into programs that we think other people want to have, and they don't want them. Thank you.
Thank you. Marshall?
Thanks. Well, I'm going to run us through a little example here of my vision. So on 4th and St. John, it's right behind City Hall. I used to have a little apartment over there before I moved into the RV. $650 a month. I think we need a lot more subdivisions to kind of enable $600 a month rooms. It's really great for the student population. If you know anyone, I'm looking for it. Furthermore, 4th and St. John Street, there's a big development proposal, right? So that one's going to stop. Okay, we're not going to have that one go up. And then we have this huge parcel of land. I get to put now 50 small homes or safe parking on there with a little 1/8 of an acre farm. Okay, that means that all the residents on 4th and St. John encampment that Marshall installed, they get to work in the field, they get to do something, manual labor, it's fun, right? And then across the street from that, there's a parking lot. Great, I'm gonna take 2 spots from that, and we're gonna set up a little market booth there. Okay, so now we have this whole hyper-local community where we're housing 70 people. Right, oh great, 1 next block over is St. James Park. We're gonna take 1/4 of that and do the exact same thing. 1/8 of an acre of gardening and 60 units. Oh, and guess great, City Hall is right down the road. We'll do the same thing at City Hall property. You ready?
Thank you. Cindy?
So first of all, I think we're talking about a relatively small group of people that are either service resistant or who are so mentally unhealthy that they can't make the decision on their own as to whether or not they have, I mean, I'm not sure they have the capacity to necessarily make the decision on their own that, about their housing situation. And the reason I raise that is that I think we have to recognize that the homeless community is a continuum. You have working families that are homeless. You have many, and we know we have 600 families a year that are becoming homeless. We have homeless veterans. And so we need to really customize our approach. And that includes a high level of engagement to get people services. For those people who are unable to comprehend the need for those services, we need to be more assertive in our conservatorship program and recognize that with those conservatorship comes a lot of responsibility, but having that is going to make it safer for everybody, for that person and the community.
Yep.
Thank you. I think encampments should not be allowed if we have housing available. I really think it's important for us to have some tough love with our compassion. There are people who are, as Cindy says, service resistant. There are drug addiction issues, there are mental illness issues, and that's why I support conservatorship and the implementation of Laura's Law, but I also support the governor's care court proposal, which will allow a judge to order people into housing and services, even when they don't want it for themselves. Because as one of my council colleagues said on the dais a few weeks ago, if I'm outside and not wanting to be housed, I'm not in my right mind. It's just not right. We need to have people take housing if they are offered it. It's important for us to assert that there is responsibility on both sides. We have the responsibility to offer the housing and to ensure safety, sanitation, and service, and they have the responsibility to take it.
Thank you. Matt?
Thank you. Yes, I really was, when I jumped into this race, made very clear that I believe that government has a responsibility to provide basic, safe, individual, dignified shelter and inpatient treatment solutions that for some folks may need to be long-term. And at the same time, I believe that individuals have a responsibility for taking advantage of that shelter and those services when they're provided. I agree with Mayor Steinberg of Sacramento. We cannot continue to accept allowing thousands of people to live outdoors. The good news is most people living outdoors want that shelter and will take advantage of it. So I do think for most people, this is a non-issue. But and I want to be clear, I don't think we're talking about criminalizing homelessness here. In fact, I know we're not. What we're talking about is providing options and bringing someone, if necessary, to a navigation center to talk to a counselor to understand their options. But we cannot continue to have the status quo situation that's on our streets today.
Thank you. Raul?
Yeah, thank you. What we're doing today to address encampments is not working. We are repeating a cycle of abatements of encampments, and within 24 to 48 hours, we see those same areas re-encamped again. We need a solution that is at the lowest level of entry, and that is sanctioned encampments. We need to be able to identify locations throughout our city where we can provide the sanitation services, restrooms, be able to come out and provide service outreach, so then that way we can start to get people in the next levels of housing, like our emergency interim housing or tiny homes, and then on the way up to permanent supportive housing. But we need to have that first level of housing if we're truly going to make a dent in our encampment areas now. I also would agree that there are some individuals, I would say, not at the level that we've heard from candidate Spence, but there are some individuals that are service resistant. We need to have opportunities for mental health and drug treatment to be expanded. I too have supported the growth of that here in the county and the efforts that our governor is pushing.
Thank you. Research shows that it's easier to keep people housed than rehousing them if they fall into homelessness. The pandemic has shined a light on housing insecurity and the sheer number of San Jose residents who are at risk of losing their homes, especially those in the BIPOC communities. What can the city do to prevent such displacement? And as mayor, what protections would you propose to ensure that these vulnerable residents stay housed and are able to remain within the city of San Jose? I think we're with you, Marshall.
Got divorced, we got drugs, and not a lot of hugs. I think that the solution to keeping our people happy, healthy, housed is to care more about our people. And what I wrote down on my notepad here, along from the jingle, is that developers, when I'm mayor, developers will get the dial tone. I'll let the people talk. By that, I mean that there are so many different solutions that we need to pursue for every different type of person throughout their housing. How do you house an infant? How do you house an elderly? How do you house a student? How do you house someone with a drug addiction? This all takes a lot of care. And I don't think I'll be able to balance the current corporate interests with the fact that I need to develop so many solutions to house my people. And I'm ready to do the work necessary to really change the structure of who gets what in this city, to make sure that every person who wants to sleep in San Jose tonight, anyway, helping people, that's my thing.
I don't know where Maggie went, but I think I'm next. So I'll just jump in and see if Maggie comes back. And I don't see the timekeeper up either. Oh, good. Okay. So 4 things I think we can concentrate on in this area. One is that we learned during COVID that it's a relatively small amount of money that we spent to keep people housed. And on average, it's about $5,000. And from at least one study I saw, it showed that we had of the people we gave money during COVID to stay housed, that 95% of them did not come back for a second set of resources. So I think we have to better study that and better understand it. I think the other thing we have to just acknowledge is that we have some root causes of homelessness. And one of them is the cost of housing. So we need to build more affordable housing. And the other is we need to make sure from a policy perspective that we're fighting for living wages. It's a really expensive place to live. And if you can't make money, I don't know how we would expect people to make the rent. And let's just remind ourselves that these are, grocery clerks, they're childcare providers, they're assistants in classrooms, and we need all of them in our community. And again, I still
go forward.
Oh, go ahead, Deb. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Well, it sounds like the county might have done a little bit better in terms of keeping people housed in a more cost-effective way than the city, because our average per household during the pandemic was about $7,000. $7,000. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago per household to keep them housed. That is still a bargain. Keeping people housed is much, much cheaper than rehousing people after they have become homeless. That is why I absolutely support our homeless prevention program and continue to support it. It's also important to continue to improve our housing supply and to make the pipeline for our affordable housing project, to fill the pipeline for our affordable housing projects. We need the developments to go through more quickly. And one of the ways that we can do that is to ensure that we can allow general plan amendments 4 times a year, as opposed to just the 2 times a year that we have now, which is double, because I made sure it was doubled than when we only had it once a year.
Thank you. Jim?
I think it's supposed to be Matt.
Yeah, I think I'm next, and I'm losing my time. Okay, so yeah, I agree. I think that investing in short-term cash assistance to prevent folks from falling into homelessness is clearly more cost-effective and more humane than the alternative. That's one great strategy. I also want to just highlight, I'm proud of the work we've done as a city just in the last couple of weeks to spin up a quick response to the end of our eviction moratorium, to proactively take over applications that have been pending at the state level to try to unwind that rental debt and get cash in the hands of tenants and landlords to make them whole, to prevent unnecessary evictions. I do want to just emphasize, though, that I think most of our anti-eviction and anti-displacement policies end up really just being Band-Aids, very important Band-Aids, but housing supply, massively increasing housing production by streamlining our development processes and incentivizing on-site affordable and developments is really got to be part of our solution here. That's the most important thing we can do as a city.
Yeah, thank you. I would start with the Band-Aids that Councilor Mahan just mentioned. Those are extremely important Band-Aids for individuals today that have been able to keep people housed. I'm proud to be the only one on the panel that says, that can say that I helped to lead to strengthen our tenant protection ordinance, our eviction protections, and to strengthen our rent control. Those are things that can help community members today, that help them with the reality of being able to stay housed in their affordable housing today. I absolutely agree. We need to be investing more in the supply side, be able to build more housing, but that's going to be a long-term solution, and our tenants need protections today. I also have been very much in favor of the financial support that we have been able to impose into our community, and been able to keep community members, as you've heard, housed. That has been tremendously helpful. It's much, much easier and much, much cheaper for us to invest in keeping people housed today rather than trying to help them through homelessness.
Okay, I'll pick it up from here then. Thanks, Matt. I lost my mouse. I couldn't turn on my microphone. I find it insulting to the people of the city to call out a particular community of people, telling them that they're victims, when we should all be helping each other to work together for the success of all. Landlords have the right to have funds to pay their bills. Tenants sign obligations to pay rent. The lack of leadership from elected officials caused a 2-year lockdown, which has depleted many people's savings. We already have protections in place to stop illegal removal of people from their living quarters. I would establish a hotline number to call for housing violations. I would make contact with agencies in the city and county which investigate these complaints to stop the illegal removals and harassments and ensure a timely investigation and remedy to these cases. If you drive around today, you look around, there are housing units going up everywhere. We have no idea as a city as to how many of these are actually available. We don't have a number. So how can we keep saying we need to build more when we don't even know how many vacancies are in the current stock that we have? Thank you.
Great, thank you. I believe we've gone through everyone in that question. I apologize for mixing up the order, and hopefully our moderator will be back with us. But for the next question, we're going to turn to another of tonight's co-hosts. Oh, Maggie's back. We're going to the Billy DeFrank LGBTQ+ Community Center, and Gabrielle Antolovich is going to give us our next question, and Maggie's back, and everything is wonderful. Thank you.
I regret such a long question that I have to actually read it. The LGBT members of the community are especially vulnerable to housing insecurity and also face particular risk to their safety, whether in their family home, living with roommates or a partner, in multi-family housing, or unhoused. What policies and funding would you champion to help unhoused LGBTQ+ youth and adults find shelter and affordable housing? How can San Jose make sure they are safe among non-LGBTQ+? And that basically is, you know, that all services that are available regarding housing that you've all been talking about are available to LGBTQs in a safe manner.
I think that's me. Am I right? Okay, thanks, sir. So, Gabrielle, thank you for such a great question. And I think, you know, a couple things that I would just say. One is that we have the hate prevention and inclusion task force that's going on right now. And I actually think this would be a great question to put into that milieu, because I think this has two different components to it. One is, what do we do to protect people from hate crimes in general? The second is, how do we do a better job of educating the community so that and our housing services, so that they're imbued with the ability to be so centered on the client that we're looking at all of these issues that you're raising. I think those are really good points. You know, working with Raul, we established Haven House in downtown San Jose, which is the first LGBTQ shelter that we have in the county. We, as you probably know, working with Deb, we're establishing the hub, and that has a big focus on foster youth, and a huge number of those children are LGBTQ. So I think we're moving in the right direction. We have much to do to get there.
Deb, please.
Thank you. Well, first of all, let me say, I think it's a tragedy that LGBTQ plus youth are less stable in their homes because of their identity. I think that's terrible. And that's why I work with Gabrielle every year to raise the rainbow and transgender flags and to raise awareness in our city about everyone being welcome in our city and celebrating our LGBTQ plus community. I think that's really important. I also think it's important to expand our safe places. And that's another way that we help educate the community about everyone being safe and being welcome here. I know that Gabrielle has worked with the police department on training new recruits about being LGBTQ plus friendly and about treating everyone equally. And I think that's something that's really important for us to do as well with our continuing education with our police department. It's definitely something that has to be imbued throughout the entire culture.
All right, that's me. Yeah, I agree. I think it's completely unacceptable that, according to HUD, 20 to up to maybe 40% of all homeless youth in our country identify as members of the LGBTQ plus community. And we clearly have to be very intentional about creating affordable and supportive housing options that are inclusive to and specifically designed in with that community in mind. I think Haven House is a great model, one type of solution of the many that we need. But I think what's important about it, and I do want to recognize the county and Life Moves for their collaboration there, is that it really comes down to being intentional with our affordable housing funding sources. You know, who we partner with to develop housing, who operates the site, what community guidelines or code of conduct exists there, the services we bring on site. If we're not intentionally thinking about all of those components, I think we're doing something wrong. So thank you for the question.
Yeah, thank you. I think first off, as elected officials, especially as non-LGBTQ plus and as allies, we need to lead by example. There was a point not too long ago where we had council members here in the city that were not in favor of gay marriage, for instance. And when you have that type of leadership in the city, that sends out a message to others that they should feel free to discriminate against the LGBTQ plus community. So that's number one. And I have been proud to help lead in that regard, to stand hand in hand with our LGBTQ plus community. And I'm most proud of creating the first district, the community district here along Post Street, to take pride in our downtown and take pride in our city for our LGBTQ plus community members. I also, as Supervisor Chavez mentioned, was excited and proud to work with the county and her on creating the Haven House, the very first dedicated shelter for homeless youth that identify in the LGBTQ plus community. We absolutely need to be conscious of that effort.
Thank you. Jim.
Okay. The Billy DeFrank Center has done a great job serving the LGBTQ plus community, and I support their efforts. They've been around a long time, probably as long as I have, as far as being in this city and doing things. And I've been at a couple of their events over the years. You know, during these turbulent times, we all need to respect and learn about each other. By isolating any group of people, we only increase misinformation about who we all are. I agree that each person is unique in many ways. My policy is to treat every person with respect and dignity. I firmly believe that the majority of residents of San Jose believe that also. No person in our city should feel vulnerable to harm because of who they are. Our police department has done a great job in diversifying its officer workforce, attempting to mirror the makeup of our community. There are many great laws There are a great many laws which can be brought to bear on those who have harmed our residents, and I implore the residents to use these channels. Everyone should be treated equally and respected. Thank you for the question.
Thank you. Go ahead, Marshall.
Thank you. I'll restate my opening line. Government over business, people over government, and the environment overall. Oxford Dictionary defines the environment as the place in which we live. And given my main goal, which is a 50% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions in 2 years, talking quick, folks. You ready for how quick we're going to move? So quick that in 2 years, things will be different with the way we live and the way we treat each other, because that's what we need. For example, what does it look like when we all use walking and biking as our main form of transit? Well, pretty different. We're going to need things closer to our homes. That means schools, agricultural facilities, food, shelter. And really what I'm envisioning is that with the scary goal of, climate change, we're going to have really positive changes in our society, especially as a developed nation. I think that when San Jose steps up to being the leader in global greenhouse gas reduction, everyone is going to benefit, especially the most vulnerable populations. So that's my whole idea, and I'll spend my life working on it.
Thank you all. So first, I just want to say I appreciate everyone's grace today. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties with our moderators' internet. And so we're here, we're in the same space, but it's virtual. And so we're relying on that technology to assist us in this conversation today. So just, I appreciate your grace, and we are going to pivot a little bit. But I am grateful for you all, our candidates, for remembering the order, because now we're going to go a little bit quicker, and we're going to do this rapid fire, and hopefully it will be fun. Oh, Maggie's back.
And I am back. Apologies. The whole neighborhood just went out of Wi-Fi, and so sorry about that.
No worries. I will hand it over to you because it's rapid fire, and it needs your professional skill set.
All right. Well, I'm doing it from the phone, so hopefully we'll give this a go. Yeah, and thank you everyone for being understanding. So we'll start here. A proposal calls Community Opportunity to Purchase Act, also known as COPA, would give certain organizations like nonprofits a first shot at purchasing housing properties when they go on the market, in order to prevent loss of affordable housing and to avoid displacement of residents. If you were the mayor now, who would you support COPA? And I don't know the order, so Cindy, if you don't mind, we'll just start with you again.
I think Cindy went first last time. I think it's my turn, and I do not support COPA.
I do not support COPA.
Yes, I do support COPA.
I support the idea of COPA, but not as a priority.
Yes, I do support COPA.
And I'm looking for a model of COPA I can support.
Okay, great. Would you support a multi-family housing development that is in compliance with the city policy and standards, even if neighbors come out in full force to oppose it? Matt?
I think we have to get to yes with the community.
Yes.
No. It has to be not, especially if it's within a single family residence neighborhood.
Yes, I would support it.
And I would say often, but I don't want to reward developers who don't really work with the community.
Yes, I would be looking for a win-win with the community.
Okay. This question is also from the Vietnamese American Roundtable. Mobile home parks are naturally occurring affordable housing, and many families of color live in mobile home parks. The City Council voted to create a mobile home designation in the general plan and to rezone all mobile home parks to preserve them for conversion. But the city has yet to do so. Do you believe that this is the best course of action?
Yes, I do.
No, I don't.
Yes, I do.
Yes, I do.
Yes, I do.
Yes, I do.
Gonna turn off my video to see if you guys can hear me better. Apologies again. This question, or sorry, San Jose is was exploring opportunity housing, which would have re-legalized fourplexes in areas previously zoned exclusively for single-family homes. With the passage of California Senate Bill 9, cities no longer prohibit duplexes, and owners can no longer, prohibit duplexes and
I think we're all having trouble hearing you, Maggie. Maggie, we're having a really hard time hearing you.
Two and build two homes. This is not covered by SB 9. Should say legalize fourplexes. Okay. All right, everyone. Thank you.
I'm going to restate the question so that everyone can hear that.
That's good, Regina.
Okay, great. San Jose was exploring opportunity housing, which would have re-legalized fourplexes in areas previously zoned exclusively for one home per lot. With the passage of California Senate Bill 9, cities can no longer prohibit duplexes, and owners must be allowed to split their lots and build two homes on each for a total of 4 homes. But a regular fourplex is not covered by SB 9. Should San Jose do more than the minimum allowed by SB 9 and also legalize fourplexes? And we can go around, and it looks like Jim, you're ready, so.
Okay, and my answer is no. I think we need to fight SB 9.
Okay, and we're gonna go with my screen, so Matt, you're next.
No.
Raul?
Yes.
Marshall?
Yes.
And Cindy?
No, it should be done. It should be more comprehensive and not piecemeal.
And Deb?
No, I didn't support SB 9 and I don't support going further than that.
Okay. As mayor, would you support implementation of SB 10, which empowers cities to upzone some properties up to 10 homes per lot? We will start with Matt.
Generally, no, but we can be denser in our urban villages.
And Raul?
Yes.
Marshall?
Yes.
Cindy?
Yes, I think if it's in the appropriate areas, but it should be targeted.
Dev?
No, we have our urban village plans for a reason.
And Jim?
Absolutely no.
Great. And I hope you forgive my informality. I wasn't as prepared to host, but I appreciate you all for your patience. In general, would you use your voice as mayor of a major city to support state actions that hold all cities, including Silicon Valley's smaller, more exclusive communities, accountable to allow and build more homes? So we'll start with Raul.
Yes.
Marshall?
Yes.
Cindy?
Yes, 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 yes.
Dev?
I believe in local control and those cities need new leaders.
And Jim?
No, the state needs to stay out of our business.
Matt?
Depends on the policy, but I sure want to see Cupertino do its fair share.
Great. So that was rapid fire. And it had some other things thrown in there, but again, you all are great partners right now in this event. So now we ask you to make your final pitch. Each candidate, please share a 1-minute closing statement, and I will call on you. So why don't we go ahead and start with Marshall?
Well, it's been such an honor to attend this great discussion with so many good community leaders. I hope everyone's enjoying it. My upstairs room has progressively gotten hotter over the past 2 hours. And I really think that as we progress through the 21st century, we need, really strong-fisted leadership to guide us towards our goals as a human race. And I think a big part of that is reimagining what our goals as a human race is. And I'm ready to have that conversation with everyone in this room. And I think that the fact that of who I am and who I represent really puts me at the leading edge of really making the changes needed in our community to increase our self-sufficiency. I'm really promoting a hyper-local form of living where what you need is produced within your community. I think we can get there. I think we can reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 50% in the next few years. Please vote Marshall Allen Woodmansee for Mayor of San Jose.
Great. And my screen moved around a little bit, but we're going to go to Cindy next.
Yes, I want to say thank you to everybody who spent so much time with us. And I want to really thank the housers, all of you, for your thoughtful questions. There's no doubt in my mind that housing and homelessness are really the #1 issues that need to be dealt with by the city. I think that one of the opportunities we have is to do more than we've done to date. And it's such a complex topic that we could actually talk about housing, affordable housing, and homelessness and all the different details. And I just want to say to all of you that I'm anxious to continue these discussions as we move through the mayor's race. I just will wrap up with this point, and that is that we've all been asked to respond to questions in 1-minute timeframes, questions that I think are complex and deserve even more conversation. But I appreciate that every day, most of you who are on this line are really fighting to make sure that we're doing this in a fair, equitable, and thoughtful way. And I look forward to continuing to work with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Deb.
Thank you. Well, I started today by saying that big problems only get bigger, but I think you and I can agree that when we work together, big problems don't need to remain problems. They can become opportunities. The future of our city is too important to waste time. Although I was born and raised in North Dakota, my husband and I found our home here 18 years ago in San Jose, and we've actually lived in Japantown and then with our first in Alum Rock and now in Willow Glen when we were actually able to purchase a home with some help, with the help of my parents. And we're happy to be raising 2 California natives, our son and daughter, who are now teens. I'm working to leave our kids and your kids a better San Jose, a San Jose that we can be proud of, because we all deserve a safe, clean, and thriving city. And I know that you know that begins with housing and our diversity of neighborhoods. And I think it's important for us to work toward that together. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim.
For me, leadership is the issue of this election. Leadership is not a skill you turn on and off. A true leader is one who has the capability to lead in difficult times and on difficult issues. A leader is one who speaks up at any time about issues. A leader knows when to say no. I know how to lead. For the past 2 years, our mayor, city council, and board of supervisors have failed to publicly lead. They let the opinion of one non-elected individual ruin the lives of the residents of our great city. They've allowed the misuse of power by this person to tell you and me how to make life choices and live our lives. The lives of our family, children, seniors, and community businesses have been severely damaged by this lack of leadership. I want to give back to our city an investment of time and knowledge is bestowed on me. My vision is to stand for integrity, harmony, and safety. The integrity to do the right thing at the right time. I will work to build harmony in the diverse neighborhoods and maintain the level of safety necessary for our community to grow and prosper. Please elect James Spence for Mayor of San Jose. Thank you very much for the time.
Thank you. Matt.
Thank you again for hosting this important conversation. And I want to again thank all of you on this call who I know are working very hard to increase our housing supply and the accessibility and affordability of housing. It's such an important issue in our city and region and state. I'm running, as I said at the beginning, because I'm concerned about the direction our city is heading in. And more than any one issue, housing affordability, homelessness, blight, safety, infrastructure, I think we need to reform the way that government's operating to be radically more pragmatic, more focused, more data-driven, more accountable for results, more accountable to you, And that's why I'm running. And based on my unique experience as a small business owner, public school teacher, I think I bring a different perspective to how government can run effectively to deliver results. I hope you'll join us at mahanforsanjose.com, where you can learn more about our revolution for common sense. And thank you again for hosting this forum today. Really appreciate it, and appreciate my colleagues being here as well.
Thank you. Raul.
Yeah, thank you. I personally have the experience of being displaced from stable housing, of the benefits of affordable housing, the benefits of tenant protections. And I can say without a doubt, and a number of the hosts for tonight's panel know, that over the last 7 years, I have worked closely with you as one of the strongest advocates and allies to be able to develop more housing, specifically as an advocate for affordable housing and tenant protections for the members of our community here in the city of San Jose, so that we can be a city where everybody can afford to live. I now today experience my close friends and family members looking to move outside of the city, as we've seen so many people be driven out. I recognize this as a crisis, and I will deal with it as a crisis head on. And I think, as you've heard tonight, I will continue to be the strongest advocate and ally for affordable housing and housing development here in our city. If you want to join us in that effort, please take a look at raulperalez.com, and appreciate again your participation today.
Thank you. And Maggie, I believe you have a closing statement for us, or closing words. As our moderator,
Yes.
Thank you for being with us.
Thank you. As mayors, I hope you guys work on expedited outage issues. No, I'm kidding. Well, anyways, that concludes the candidate portion of this forum. Thank you all for your thoughtful responses and answering some of these difficult questions for us here today. Recordings of this forum will be posted online at SB at Home Action Fund's YouTube page, as well as Facebook. And yeah, before we sign off, Regina, the Executive Director of SB at Home and SB at Home Action Fund, has a few important words for us. Thanks again, everyone.
Thank you, Maggie. I appreciate you. I appreciate everyone who was here and participated in the forum, all of the candidates. We're putting up a simple 3-question poll actually right now, and we'd ask you to fill it out. We'd appreciate if you did that. We're grateful that you joined us here today to learn a little bit more. We hope this forum has helped you learn about housing issues and about the candidates. This is a very critical race here in our city. And so I hope it's helped you become more informed as a voter. Thank you again to everyone, our moderator, our candidates, our interpreters, such a critical part of our event here today. And thank you to all of our co-hosts. You all are working in and throughout and for the community, helping us reach more voters so that we can have them in this space as we talk about such critical issues. Today was the second of our series of 5 forums this spring. And so we invite you to come and join our other forums as well, to hear from other candidates in local races. I appreciate you all for sharing this space with us again, and doing so very respectfully. So have a wonderful weekend. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.